Welcome to my channel. I'm Alexa. Today I'm making glazed chocolate donut muffins. I've measured out all my ingredients and I recommend that you do so too. You can find a full list of ingredients and measurements in the link in the description. Remember to watch the video first so you can be prepared.
First, I will sift together my flour, baking powder, baking soda, and cocoa powder together. This is to make sure there are no clumps. If you don't have a sifter, you can use a wire whisk or a fork. When you're sifting, you can push the ingredients through using a rubber spatula or a spoon, or you can just tap the sides of it with your hands. If your sifter has a stand, you should tap the sides of your sifter after it looks like all the ingredients have fallen through to make sure no ingredients are stuck. Today I'm not using a sifter with a stand, so I don't have to do that step. To help my ingredients mix better later on, I'm going to quickly whisk them together to combine them. If you don't have a wire whisk, you can use a fork. Next, I'm going to put my oil, granulated sugar, and brown sugar into the bowl of my stand mixer. I'm going to mix them until they're combined. I noticed some of my ingredients aren't mixing as well as I'd like them to, so I'm going to scrape down my bowl and the beater of my mixer with a rubber spatula. Make sure to get as much batter as possible off the rubber spatula because it could be hard to combine with the rest of your ingredients later on and create clumps. Now I can turn back on my stand mixer. I'm going to scrape down my bowl again before I added my eggs so it will mix in better. Next, I'm going to add in one of my eggs to my batter. Normally I'd scramble my eggs first, but since I'm adding them in individually, that would be harder. If you'd like to scramble your eggs before adding them, I'd recommend putting them in separate bowls. Now that my first egg is mixed in, I'm going to add in my second one. I'm going to mix these ingredients together until they're combined. I'm going to quickly scrape down my bowl to make sure all my ingredients are mixing in. Now I can restart my mixer. My batter looks good, so I'm going to add in half of my sifted dry ingredients. Make sure all the ingredients enter the mixing bowl, otherwise your batter might be mixing some necessary ingredients. I'm going to start my mixer off on the lowest setting so none of the dry ingredients fly out of the mixer. I noticed that some of my dry ingredients are going up the sides of my bowl, so now it's time to scrape it down again. I'm going to mix my ingredients a little longer to combine the ingredients I just scraped down. I'm going to scrape down my bowl quickly because some dry ingredients still aren't mixed in. Now I'm going to add in half of my milk. Now I can restart my mixer. I'm going to scrape down my bowl again so I can make sure my batter is mixing well. Now I'm going to add in the rest of my dry ingredients. I'm going to restart my mixer. I'm going to scrape down my bowl again because some dry ingredients have once again went up the sides of it. I'm going to restart my mixer for a second to mix in those ingredients. Now I'm going to add in the rest of my milk. I can see that there are some ingredient clumps, so I'm going to scrape down my bowl again to help them mix in better. sometimes it's useful to use a second rubber spatula to scrape the ingredients off the first one. It can be helpful to take the beater off of your stand mixer when cleaning it off so you can see what's on the back of it. I'm going to let my batter mix a little longer to make sure it's fully combined. It looks beautiful, so let's move on to the next step. Now I'm going to fill my muffin liners. I'm using a 3 tablespoon scoop twice to fill the muffin liners, but you can use a 1/4 cup and an 1/8 cup to get the same size muffins. After I scoop out the batter, I scrape it against the side of the bowl to make sure there are no drips and the scoop isn't overfilled. In order to make sure all your muffins come out the same size, make sure you get all the batter out of the scoop or measuring cup. You can move on to the next part of the video if you'd like, but you can also stay here while I finish filling my muffin liners. Now I'm going to put my muffins into the oven. My oven's preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. My muffins took 18 minutes to bake. I'd recommend setting a timer for 15 minutes and then set another timer for a few more minutes if they aren't done yet. Put your muffins on a cooling rack to cool. Next, I'm going to get started on my glaze. First, I'm going to sift my cocoa powder. This is a very important step because if you don't do this, it is likely that your glaze will be full of clumps because the cocoa powder doesn't melt. Next, I'm going to pour my milk, cocoa powder, butter, and corn syrup into my saucepan and heat them over high heat. We want our concoction to boil. I'm going to stir the glaze with a rubber spatula, but you can also use a wooden spoon. This is to make sure all the ingredients mix together evenly and that it doesn't burn. My glaze started to boil very quickly. Yours might take some more time, and that's okay. After my glaze boils, I'm going to sift my powdered sugar into my saucepan. Sifting the powdered sugar is important because it makes sure your glaze will be smooth. Try to sift as quickly as you can because we want to combine the sugar with our other ingredients while they're still warm. To combine my sugar with the rest of my glaze, I'm going to whisk it. If you don't have a wire whisk, you can use a fork, as I'm doing. As you can see, our glaze should look smooth. Next, I'm going to put the glaze on my muffins. To do this, I'm going to put my muffin into my saucepan and swirl it so my muffin gets covered in glaze. Then I'm going to top it off with rainbow nonpareils, but this is optional. I just think it looks pretty that way. If you intend on putting them onto your muffins, make sure to put them on your muffins while the glaze isn't dry yet, otherwise it won't stick. And our muffins are done and looking delicious. Please let me know what you thought of the video in the comments and how the recipe went for you. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you can see when new videos are added. Thank you and enjoy!